Good evening to everyone. Γεια Σαμλάρ, καλησπέρα σε όλους. I welcome you in tonight's discussion organized by the Association of Social Reform, OPEK, and the Communal Movement Platform. This is the launching event of our cooperation, OPEK, together with CMP, Communal Movement Platform. Tonight's discussion is titled Cyprus at the Crossroads, Unification and the Common European Future, or Division and Confrontation, Lessons from the Joint Efforts of Greek Cypriots and Turkish Cypriots. Allow me to give the chance to Soula Hadjikyriakou to coordinate tonight's event. Soula, good evening. Γεια Σαμλάρ, καλησπέρα. Άνοιξε το μικρόφωνο σου, ο λόγος σε σένα. Όπως έχουμε πει, θα πούμε δύο λόγια εγώ και ο Mehmet για τη συνεργασία και μετά θα μιλήσουμε με τους καλεσμένους μας.
Ναι, okay. Glad to see you're here. Okay, Kyriakos, you want to start the discussion?
Yes, thank you very much, Soula. Let me introduce you first our keynote speakers. It's Phidias Pilides, former president of the Cyprus Chamber of Commerce and Industry, and Fikri Toros, former president of the Turkish Cypriot Chamber of Commerce. This is a very unique opportunity we have to bring two people together and share with them their experiences working for a long time to solve the Cyprus problem. Of course, the current situation is very, very difficult. As you know, OPEK was always for many, many years in the front line, in many occasions together with Mr. Toros and Mr. Pilides in order to facilitate the cooperation between the two communities. Tonight, we are launching our cooperation together with the Communal Movement Platform. I welcome Mehmet Derya. Mehmet, good evening. Γεια Σαμλάρ. Can you unmute as well, please? Few words about our cooperation. We are two civil society movements. We consider that the long-standing status quo and the recent speedy course towards deeper and permanent division of Cyprus is not our destiny. Cyprus, we do firmly believe that Cyprus deserves a place in the world and into the European Union as a common homeland of both the Greek Cypriot community and the Turkish Cypriot community, and we do consider that the firm basis for solving the Cyprus problem is the bizonal, bi-communal federation with political equality as provided by the relevant UN Security Council resolutions. Of course, when we say that we do firmly believe to this basis of solving the Cyprus problem, we do aware that we mean every word of this bizonal, bi-communal federation with political equality. We wish that we can be able to mobilize ordinary citizens from both communities because we strongly believe that our common future lies in the European Union. A Cyprus federation will provide a prospect, a real prospect for peace, stability, and security and a sustainable future for our citizens. And the fact that we are facing now serious challenges is at the same time a huge challenge for us as citizens. We want to unite our forces in the field of the civil society. And with these few words, I will give the chance to Mehmet Derya to say a few things about the Communal Movement Platform.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Mehmet Derya. We established our platform in December 2019 towards the presidency elections. And after the Turkish intervention to presidency election, we changed our platform name to Communal Movement Platform to fight again, to make our country reunion again. In this case, since then, we are combining to make our country reunion. Recently, we are joining to OPEK to be more powerful together to fight for our reunification for our island. In this case, I would like to say thank you very much for former president of Turkish Cypriot Chamber of Commerce, Mr. Fikri Toros, and former president of Cyprus Chamber of Commerce, Mr. Phidias, Pilides. Thank you and good luck. So,
thank you very much, Mehmet, for your few words. Soula, you have the take for the discussion.
Yes. Well, I'm glad to see you all here in the panel. We should try and see how we, as Greek Cypriots and Turkish Cypriots together, try to choose the right way to go forward towards a unification. We are really at crossroads now. One way takes us to a reunification and to a united Cyprus within Europe, and the other road takes us to division, formal division, permanent division, and to catastrophe. So we have to struggle together and find the right way towards the salvation of our country, our homeland. Mr. Toros, I will start from you. You've been a politician for a long time, and you are also a former president of the Turkish Cypriot Chamber of Commerce, and you're also a member of parliament and deputy president of the Republican Turkish Party. So you are in politics a long time now. I'm sure you have seen Guterres' latest report a few days ago, in which he said that the next few months will be very crucial for Cyprus. Do you think there's still a window of opportunity after 4 years from Crans-Montana and after all this deadlock and all that has changed Cyprus all these years?
Well, thank you very much indeed. It is an absolute pleasure to be a part of this webinar, and I'd like to thank OPEK Citizens Forum and the Communal Movement Platform for organizing this webinar within the context of the project Citizens Forum to Reform Europe, and obviously for inviting me and Mr. Pilides as guest speakers. Now, following the failure of the five-party Swiss conferences in 2017, the Cyprus issue remains in an impasse and, as you correctly said, Soula, is once again at an extremely crucial juncture. This rather serious deadlock must be overcome to avoid any likelihood of the further deepening of the division. Hence, a new strategy and a very delicate handling needs to be devised. Conditions today are extremely challenging and very much complex. These are the consequences of sequential developments which are both internal as well as external. Internally, continued resistance of one side towards the UN Security Council Resolution 716 related to political equality, and aspirations of the other side for the recognition of sovereign equality as a precondition for the resumption of negotiations, are both not in line with the relevant Security Council resolutions and hence outside the mandate of the Secretary General. Furthermore, they violate the underlying spirit of federation and therefore are very much detrimental not only to the settlement process, but also to the sustainability of the future federal state. Any prolongation of these positions will undoubtedly jeopardize the interests of both Cypriot communities and will deprive them further of their urgent need for lasting stability, security, and prosperity. Externally, the Eastern Mediterranean and the Middle East regions are encountering a volatile geopolitical situation. The conflicts in our vicinity, such as those between Israel and Palestine, Lebanon, Syria, Libya, and Egypt, have an influential impact on the likely forthcoming developments in our own region. Inevitably, these will constitute a prior concern to international actors such as NATO, the US, the EU, and Russia. This is the geopolitical context within which the Cyprus issue is currently evolving. Cyprus is the nucleus of the ongoing geopolitical challenges. Therefore, a new approach is necessitated and must be devised by the UN to ensure the resumption of result-oriented negotiations without further delay. The way forward certainly requires innovative ideas aimed at the creation of a different approach to the ones implemented so far. It must take into account the mistakes of the past and offer the provision of sufficient motivation for political will and courage. It must address the immediate needs and relieve the fears of all parties concerned. I personally believe these will promise to be indispensable leverages to the finding of a common ground, which will pave the way towards the resumption of the Cyprus peace-building process. The new approach must irrevocably focus on and ensure full compliance with the relevant UN resolutions, parameters, and convergences up until Crown Montana. In other words, the reunification of the island under a bizonal and bicommunal federation with political equality in line with the fundamental values of the European Union. In the context of the negotiations, an improved model of federation should be seriously considered based on the principles of respect to the inherent rights of both communities, human rights, fundamental freedoms, sustainability, and proper functioning of the future federal state. The alleged challenges of effective participation can be satisfactorily resolved on the basis of these principles. To restore the soul and secure the future of Cyprus requires so much more than rhetorical language and requires the most elusive of all things in lasting peace and genuine democracy, and that is unity. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Toros. Mr. Pilides, do you think we can find common ground in the next few months to restart meaningful negotiations, solution-oriented, to find a solution?
Good evening to all. First of all, please allow me to express my sincere thanks to the organizers of today's web discussion, in particular their representatives, Mehmet, Kyriakos, and of course to you, Soula, for coordinating. I am confident that the panel discussion which will follow will give the chance to all of us to have a good debate and answer your question from our different perspectives. Needless to say, it is always a pleasure for me to participate in discussions together with Mr. Fikri Toros, and I look forward to doing it once again today. Yes, answering directly your question, I wouldn't be here if I didn't believe there is still hope. We are in difficult situations, we are in troubled waters, maybe one of the most difficult periods in the history of the Cyprus problem-solving efforts. However, I strongly believe that we must not give up hope. We must continue our efforts. I am not a politician, and I will steer away from political language. It was very interesting for me to listen to my friend Fikri, who is now a politician, and I was delighted by what he had to say, because I fully agree with his angle of seeing things. Title of today's discussion: Cyprus at the crossroads, the European future, or division and confrontation. You may think and you may say that this is a leading question, and it is. But at the end of the day, it is a no-brainer. Do we really want confrontation? So it is my firm belief that we have no other option but to solve the Cyprus problem in a functional, sustainable manner, where the basic freedoms and human rights will be safeguarded and the single international personality will be secured for our united Cyprus. The alternative will be to the detriment of both communities on the island, but also the wider area in the region, as Fikri mentioned earlier, but which also encompasses Greece and Turkey. I would like to go back a little bit, because I believe that the involvement of civil societies is very important in helping politicians to come to a solution. So between 2014 and 2016, Fikri and I used our positions as the leaders of the business communities by being presidents of our respective chambers. And we embarked on a campaign to inform, educate, if you like, civil societies and on civil societies, and that the solution of the Cyprus problem is a one-way road. In this, we were strongly supported by foreign missions and governments. We were invited to many places together to speak to parliaments, to talk with foreign ministers and other officials. And just to say a few examples, in March 2015, we were invited to the House of Commons in London and spoke to an audience together. In June 2015, we went to Stockholm and Helsinki at the invitation of the governments of these countries. In September 2015, we had an audience at the European Parliament. February 2016, Rome. June 2016, Berlin, Munich, Hanover. October 2016, the United Arab Emirates.
I also remember your project about the exchange of internships.
Yes, that was one of the two chambers initiatives that was very successful indeed. We participated at presentations at the EU ambassadors meeting in Nicosia more than once, by invitation, of course. And in July 2015, we managed to do the unthinkable, which was to bring President Anastasiadis and President Akinci to the Chateau status to speak to an uninvited audience of business people from both communities about their vision of the economic future of Cyprus after a solution. People learned about us. We were invited to numerous economist conferences, always together. And then we formed the Nicosia Economic Forum, which consisted of the two Cypriot chambers, the Hellenic chamber and the Turkish Union of Chambers. And we had meetings in Nicosia, in Athens, in Constantinople, in more than once.
Okay, these are things of the past, though. We would like to know, doing anything now? Are you doing something like this now? Or well, we have a different...
what I'm coming, the conclusion I'm coming to is that, you know, I was hoping and I am encouraging the communities, the civil societies to be active. We have been far too passive in the past. Fikri and I did all these things. We were supported more by foreign governments and organizations such as the Peace Institute, the Peace Research Institute of Oslo, with studies and financing for doing various things. But we never managed to raise enough reaction. We always got praise, but we never actually raised enough reaction from our communities to show politicians that people are really terrified of a non-solution to Cyprus and the dangers it encompasses.
Yes, I think the right way is to talk about the benefits of a solution. What we are going to gain from a solution, not only the damages and the complication of a federation solution, and people think that it's something strange and something complicated and they don't want to talk about it. But if you explain to them in simple terms how we can go about and how the new democracy will, the new state will operate, people will be more friendly towards this.
Yes, we were using studies by PRIO, the Peace Research Institute of Oslo. And on our part, we were trying to convey the message that economic benefits do not restrict themselves to the business community. They just don't make rich people richer, but they spread across all sectors of society. They raise the standard of living of all the people, and they contribute to the well-being and prosperity of all Cypriots. And of course, we are not restricted to economic benefits. But as I said earlier, my message, my final message is that unless politicians feel the pressure from civil societies, it is unlikely that the Cyprus problem will be ever solved. And this has not happened. As I said earlier, we have been too passive, too placid. On the contrary, certain circles are always trying to prove exactly the opposite, i.e., that the solution will create costs, it will burden heavily and unequally one of the two communities, it will encompass dangers of a conflict again. But is there really more danger of a conflict whilst the issue remains unresolved than if there is a viable, agreed solution to the problem? Yes. That's all I wanted to say.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Pilides. Mr. Toros, we are all waiting now for Mr. Erdogan to come to Cyprus on the 20th, to go to Famagusta and make his new announcement. Any idea, any information, what he's going to talk about, what he's going to do? Because everybody is warning him about it, not to challenge people, not to do anything which is not complied with the decisions of the United Nations. But it seems that Turkey that ignores European Union, the United Nations. What can you say about that?
Well, I'm afraid I don't know much more than what you have just said. We all know the new position of Turkey and the Turkish Cypriot leader. And we all know that they are planning to open the fenced-off area of Varosha. However, they are emphasizing the fact that they will proceed with this action in line with international law, and they will make sure that they return the properties to their legal owners. That's all they have said so far. The action that has been taken so far has only been the opening of the promenade, the coastal promenade, which has not violated anybody's property at all. Therefore, we can't say that the actions taken so far are in violation of the relevant UN Security Council resolutions. So we have to wait and see what President Erdogan will bring with him. However, I do very much hope that it will be in line with the relevant UN resolutions, which have become components of international law.
But UN resolutions say the citizens of Famagusta will go back under UN administration, not the Turkish or Turkish Cypriot administration. So this will divide our people, the people from Varosha. Some, they may want to go, some others will not accept it. There will be difficult situations.
I think
create more problems.
Yeah, I think it would be wrong to reach to a prejudgment. We have to wait and see. We have to wait and see what action is exactly taken. I would rather refrain from making any predictions, but we all know that the Turkish Foreign Minister, Mr. Çavuşoğlu, has repeatedly said that they will not violate international law and they will not violate the related Security Council resolution. This issue was raised in Geneva during the informal 5+ UN meeting as well, and the necessary message was conveyed to the Secretary General then as well. So that's all we can say at the moment. I would rather wait until President Erdogan's visit and his statements before we can judge them.
Still, I would ask you, how far will Turkey go against the warnings and the rhetoric of the European Union and the United Nations? It seems that she doesn't care about what everybody says towards her. She keeps doing what she decides to do.
Well, I think we have to be fair, and we have to go back to the peace process starting from 2004. You will recall that President Erdogan's party, AKP, came into power in 2002, just at the beginning of the Annan Plan process. And they supported the Annan Plan. They supported the reunification of the island under the relevant Security Council resolutions. And their support and proactive involvement and efforts continued until the Swiss conferences. Unfortunately, in all the processes ranging between 2004 and 2017, the efforts and proactive steps of the Turkish side were not fully reciprocated by the Greek Cypriot leaders. Therefore, before we judge the current position, I think we have to understand how we got here. Turkey very well understands that the only realistic and feasible model of settlement in Cyprus is a bizonal, bicommunal federation with political equality. But on the grounds that the Greek Cypriot leaders have been reluctant to accept political equality as described in the Security Council resolution, and despite the convergences on components of political equality, such as rotational presidency and effective participation, they have obviously reached to the conclusion that a new strategy needs to be devised. Now, the new strategy of sovereign equality is not something that I agree with, and I say that very clearly. Neither my party, Republican Turkish Party, nor myself agree with the fact that the sovereign equality of the Turkish Cypriots must be recognized as a precondition. This is not right. This is outside the Secretary General's mandate, and it is not in line with the resolutions. It actually means, sovereign equality means a separate recognized state, okay? Mm-hmm. So I remember during the former President Denktaş's negotiations with Mr. Pierides in the years of 90s. And I remember Mr. Denktaş insisting on a confederation, which again meant the recognition of a state in the north and letting the two recognized states form a confederal partnership. And I also recall Security Council convening in 1999 and passing a resolution 1251 saying that under no circumstances the Security Council would accept two recognized states, and the only viable settlement would be a federation, and their decisions on the future of Cyprus remained unchanged. So I do not see that sovereign equality or the claim of the Turkish side stands a strong chance. I hope that a common ground will be reached in the coming months.
Yes, yeah. Well, it's good that in this report of the...
Soula, please. I would like to raise some of the questions coming also from the chat.
Yes, okay. I was going to add something to that, but okay.
It's very important to check where we stand now and what are the possibilities we have to reverse the current trend, which is creating a situation of a continuous confrontation. It's not just that we are failing on reaching an agreement, a settlement to unify our country, but it's also what is behind all this messy situation created in recent years. Just 4 years ago, we were very, very close to a settlement. We have the momentum, Mr. Phidias, Pilides. You were the front runners talking to the society, and you are explaining the economic benefits. But since then, a lot of things have changed, and this has changed also has serious impacts on the society. And the question I want to raise to you both is why the society, and especially those people who have good understanding of what is happening with the economy and the prospects of a unified country, island, do not react, do not participate in the public dialogue. We have only the reproduction of the well-known attitudes since then, the blame game, and nothing else. And we see that the civil society does not play an important role, especially in the South, Phidias, Pilides.
Unfortunately, Kyriakos, the civil societies get discouraged by what is going on at the highest political level. They listen to politicians, they get confusing messages. If we are going to talk, I'm not a politician, but let's say how disparate are the points that are being put forward by AKEL and DC, for instance, as compared to those of DIGO, EDEC, and other parties. We get confused. Some of us maybe are more knowledgeable about the whole issue, but I would say the average layman gets totally confused. So when things seem to be going positively, on the rare occasions that happens, civil societies have failed to put their weight behind the leaders. The leaders need encouragement. I strongly believe that in 2017, if more voices were raised towards pushing the leadership to an agreed solution, that we could have had some result. Now the situation is very difficult. Now, coming to the specific circumstances of myself, and perhaps, well, you see, I've lost my friend, I've lost my partner in these efforts, as Fikri is now a politician, no longer the leader of the chamber. And I am, of course, not the leader of the chamber here, having completed my 2 terms. I must say that the relations between the 2 chambers now are not what they used to be. We are never now talking about internships, as Rula said earlier, or the other projects that the 2 chambers did together, the What If video film and many other initiatives. They are basically not talking, as I understand it. And I'm not going to try and pass blame. I do have my views, but this is not the forum to put it forward. I am still second in the hierarchy of the chamber, the Cyprus Chamber of Commerce and Industry, and I know what is going on. So, it is a very difficult situation even there, because the negative climate at the top filters through to the lower levels of society.
Mr. Pilides, I think that in 2017, when the Grand Montana was going on, while the civil society was out in the streets, they were having parades, they were trying to encourage the leaders to reach a solution. But the actual power was in the hands of the leaders in Grand Montana. The people in the road, in the street, were in favor of the solution. And if somebody could also explain to them the benefits of a solution and how economy will develop, how our country will be a big power in the Middle East if we have a united country. The whole of Cyprus will have a better future. But it was our leader. If you have a leader who is not credible enough, who is flirting with a 2-state solution, who is flirting with a loose federation, but he never explains what this is. All this that do not help. You know what I mean? I mean, it's all in the hands of our leader. We know the Turkish Cypriot leader, now he wants 2 states, but we have to convince everybody, the international community, that we rely on federation. We insist on federation with political equality, with political equality, with effective participation, Turkish Cypriot effective participation in all bodies of the federal government, and also try to find a way after the convergence about gas and sea zones and all that, about the natural wealth of our country, we have to include Turkish Cypriots in all this process. These are things will convince both Turkey and the Turkish Cypriots and the international community that we mean business. This is what I mean.
Well, I'm not going to express an opinion on that because I was not there. I don't know how much blame has to go to each side, and I wouldn't dare trying to pass blame. I'm sure not enough was done by both sides, and if enough is done by both sides, then only then there will be a solution. But you are saying, Rula, that there were voices and people in the streets, etc. At the same time, there were the opposite camps as well. And
there will always be opposite camps.
Pushing the leaders towards the other end by claiming that they were being too submissive and they were giving too much to the other side, etc. It's not an easy thing, I believe, for the leaders when they do not have wholehearted support. And you know, we've came from a situation in 2004 with the Annan Plan when 76% of Greek Cypriots voted against a solution that was proposed by the then Secretary General of the United Nations. And to reverse that has been a very, very difficult process. I might agree with you that the situation now is not like that. Maybe there is a majority of Greek Cypriots that believe in an agreed viable solution. However, the situation has changed totally on the Turkish Cypriot side. First of all, the influence of Turkey, and everybody knows that they influenced the elections there. I'm sure nobody can deny that. And basically, they installed an administration which will follow the instructions word by word. So I'm not saying we need to give up. I will never give up. But the situation is very, very difficult. And you said earlier in your own judgment that President Erdogan does what he thinks he should do without taking into account anyone, the European Union, the United Nations, the condemnations, the encouragement, and whatever. And this is not only in Cyprus. I mean, take Libya, take Syria, take many other cases. So I wouldn't be so direct as to say that the blame was solely in the hands of President Anastasiadis.
Can I
yes, Kyriakos.
Soula, first of all, I would like to ask Mehmet Derya if he wants to raise a question.
Yes, I wanted to ask him also. Yes.
Mehmet.
Okay. Right, okay, I would like to ask a question for both Mr. Pilides and Mr. Toros. Politicians doesn't seem they are listening us. But we have the power because maybe we don't do enough, so that's why they don't want to listen us. So we do lots of protests and talks and everything else, but it doesn't seem to move inch since 1974. So what we should do from now on is to go maybe internationally, or we should get all together, like as we did with OPEK and us for two community. We should all get together and do more protests, more powerful things, so they can listen us. They know that we are here and we have the power. So what do you think we should do more so they listen us? Thank you.
I think politicians count the numbers always. And if we can bring together masses of people from both communities to demonstrate. They can do it on both sides of the divide if it is difficult to bring so many people to one side at the same time, but they can do it jointly, and they have to show strength in numbers. This is what politicians will see. Numbers always count. Numbers are votes.
Thank you.
I agree with Phidias, obviously, and our past experience is a clear confirmation of how true the role of the civil society is in such peace processes. It is very difficult, of course, when you have the political line moving along one direction, which doesn't particularly serve to a result-oriented process. And then on the other side, you see a number of civil society groups rapidly losing their motivation and faith. And I think we can see this on the opinion polls frequently carried out on both sides of the divide. We see very clearly that the desire for the reunification of the island under a federation still persists across the whole island. But because of the impasse and because of the reasons for the impasse and lack of sufficient commitment to overcome the impasse has diminished the faith, unfortunately, of the civil society. So people are, they are tending to put their personal interests and personal ambitions ahead of the interests of the island at the moment. I can comfortably say that. There is a very serious problem we have across the whole island. And therefore, I strongly believe in confidence-building measures at this stage. Confidence-building measures that Phidias and I played a very influential role in the past, at the implementation of projects like the permanent connection of the electricity grids, the mobile phone interoperability, the PDO registration of helium halloumi, the Green Line trade, opening of additional crossings, and so forth. And we all know how Cyprus has changed ever since the implementation of such CBMs. At the moment, I think it's more doable to concentrate on the needs of all parties concerned and try and satisfy them through CBMs, perhaps CBMs with a bigger potential impact. And hopefully that will be conducive towards the resumption of negotiations aimed at a federal settlement. It's a very difficult phase we're going through. I want to also underline the importance of the international involvement as well. As I said in my intervention, the issue has become more complex than a Cyprus issue at the moment. Therefore, international actors with vested interest in the Eastern Mediterranean have got to be more proactive as well. And they have to be equidistant to both communities and contribute more concretely. I believe that's lacking as well.
Mr. Toros, I think the registration of halloumi was a good example of good cooperation, and probably through your two chambers. I don't know, but I think it should have been done through your chambers. And that was a success story. For other CBMs, I don't see, we tried electricity before, we tried mobiles before, no result. I think we have gone over these CBMs. We have to do something tangible, something which will bring us up to the times of reaching a solution. No time to spare. no time to play about. We have to go to the center of the problem and touch it. Of course, there is another crossroad right now. The one road leads us to do nothing at the moment. Don't start any talks and wait until 2023 when there will be elections both in Cyprus and in Turkey, or start a process and just drag on, which will drag on until we reach a deadlock. I don't know which is better.
Well, I mean, these are different lines of thought. Yes. My personal thought is that the longer you let the impasse linger on, the more difficult it becomes to overcome it. So I believe an immediate influence or intervention or arbitration of international parties under the United Nations must be engaged in finding this common ground that the Secretary General is searching for at the moment. The CBMs by no means substitute a comprehensive settlement. CBMs can only be conducive to a comprehensive settlement by improving the everyday living conditions of the communities under the status quo, by satisfying certain needs which cannot be satisfied under the conflicted state of affairs. And confidence-building measures can bring the two communities closer to one another. I agree with you, we have accomplished most of this. I do agree with you. But you must also understand that the main stumbling block of the ongoing impasse is the hydrocarbon explorations and the maritime zone issues around Cyprus and in the contested waters of Cyprus, Greece, and Turkey. Therefore, some kind of a modality that can be devised through CBMs at the moment to find a mutually acceptable temporary solution to these explorations, I'm sure will improve the atmosphere that will help to overcome the impasse. That's the kind of thing I'm talking about. Yes. Something that would involve the opening of the fenced-off area of Famagusta alongside with the opening, or rather the lifting of the sanction of the Republic of Cyprus on the Turkish Cypriot airport and seaports, for instance. Things like this. CBMs that offer a bigger impact that hopefully will take the process to a cul-de-sac, to a point of no return.
The good thing about the latest report by Mr. Guterres is that he makes no mention of the bottom-up theory. He mentioned this theory in Geneva. The bottom-up theory is actually confederation. This was introduced by the British, but I don't know if the British, when they draft the resolution at the end of this month, because they are the British who draft the resolutions for Cyprus, they include this idea. Until now, it has not been included in the official papers of UN. So we have to wait and see. Another thing I would like to ask Mr. Mehmet Derya, what is the situation over your side? I mean, today we learned that one journalist was dismissed from his work. We heard about the Chancellor of Akiji, who was sent back to Cyprus when he wanted to enter Turkey, and things like that. I mean, how is your life there? I would also mention something else. I am a member of the gender committee, technical gender committee, and we were told the other day that the Turkish Cypriots should not make a reference to bicommunal and terms like this. They changed the whole terminology and they mention bilateral states. They talk about two states. They don't mention bi-communal and things like that. I don't know. Things have changed over your side according to the new leader.
Well, thank you very much. In our side, unfortunately, is not very bright at the moment. There's lots of things going on against the Turkish Cypriot community. Unfortunately, from the country who said they came and they save us, which is Turkey, and then
which is a myth.
They did stop people traveling to Turkey. Some people, especially who are left wing and supported Mr. Akinci on the election time, unfortunately, and then they're sending them back. And they said there's a list of people. We don't know. They don't say who is it. So you're just taking chance to go. If you can go, you go. You don't go, they send you back. And also there's other things in Cyprus that we don't really like. We don't really used to it, which is they're just attacking everywhere. They're just trying to make us look like another countries like them, like the Turkey, which is not, we're not supporting this and we don't like it. And we're always making protests and writing articles about this. But as I said earlier, there is nobody listening us at the moment. So we need to do more powerful protests and more powerful talks so that they can understand us, they can understand the public, so we can change something towards us. Unfortunately, it doesn't go that way at the moment.
These protests should be organized by both Greek Cypriots and Turkish Cypriots, actually,
yes,
because we have to work together if we're going to work for our country, for our homeland. We are both involved in all this problem, and we both have to fight for it.
Yes, that's why we cooperate with OPEK to be more powerful and do both sides protests together, so we can let our voice to be heard from the internationally. All over the world can see what's going on in Cyprus, so we can maybe change something on this towards the uniting the Cyprus.
Thank you, Mehmet. Soula, I'd like to ask Mr. Pilides, do you have the sense that there is an urgency among the Greek Cypriot community that something is going wrong? We are moving towards the wrong direction. And I want to know your personal opinion on that. What are the perceptions of the Greek Cypriot community after 4 years of complete deadlock in the processes, as well as the situation in relation with the hydrocarbons? Do you have the sense that there is a disillusionment among Greek Cypriots that was actually an issue which has not been handled in the way that can produce a benefit for the island, and it has, in contrary, created a serious confrontation with consequences, deep consequences? This is just what I rephrase from UN Secretary General latest reports. He says, Antonio Guterres says, that what we are experiencing now is a serious setbacks with long consequences for the years to come. Do you have the sense that there is a countdown and we have to take some drastic decisions on the appropriate time to check what we have done and what we need to think to do in the near future?
Well, sometimes we consider ourselves we would have considered ourselves fortunate if we could go back to different opportunities that we may have had in the past. Talking about the sentiment, yes, the sentiment is very negative. There is a real fear in the Greek Cypriot community that we've basically have come to a situation where the permanent division of Cyprus is realistic, is a realistic outcome, and there is great disappointment and great fear about that. Some of the people believe that Famagusta, and not some, the majority, according to a survey, believe that Varosha is already lost. It's never gonna be given back to their rightful owners under UN administration, pending a permanent solution. And these sentiments follow the rhetorics by the Turkish and Turkish Cypriot leaderships. There is constant talk about two states, sovereign equality, Varosha and Morphu are never going to be given back, etc., etc. So the messages these messages really worry people. Hydrocarbons, you mentioned. I think we've generally made the mistake of overvaluing the importance of hydrocarbons. And their importance is diminishing day by day based on world economics. I won't go on to analyze the reasons for this, but we know what the prices of oil and gas are these days, which will probably make it uneconomical for a long time to extract any of the quantities that we have found at the level that we have found them. So we could have had an agreement on that, which would have had no impact as yet on anybody, as economics dictate that we really haven't got that much to benefit from at this very moment. I would like to go back, if I may, to confidence-building measures that Soula mentioned earlier. Fikri and I were both in the team of the Technical Committee for Economic and Commercial Matters. Fikri, of course, left when he was elected. And I still continue to be the co-chair of this committee. Confidence-building measures, serious confidence-building measures, are not easy. They always come across mutual recognition or the lack of willingness for recognition of even the most minor authorities on either side. And this is mutual. Turkey does not recognize us. We do not recognize authorities within, and I'm not talking about the governing administration, I'm talking about lower levels as well. Fikri knows very well what we went through when we were discussing the telephony issues. However, some things have come to fruition, like there is a permanent, people may not know it, but there is a permanent connection of the electricity grids. And telephony does work, although, you know, events have overtaken us now with Viber and WhatsApp and internet. Maybe we don't need to go the expensive way of mobile telephony to communicate. We are now continuing to discuss confidence-building measures within that committee. And we'll see if we can come across a couple of wins in the foreseeable future. But
yeah.
these things are not the answer. Excuse me, they are not the answer. Fikri mentioned earlier, return of Varosha under UN administration in reciprocation for recognition of the ports and the airports on the Turkish Cypriot side. If something like that is pulled together, then it will have a real impact on the possibility of a solution in the future. However, politicians are afraid that such things will minimize or will reduce the willingness to fight further for a solution. It will basically, they're afraid that it will accommodate one side or the other to an adequate extent. So their interest in a permanent solution becomes even lower.
And again, Phidias, if there is no concrete framework for a comprehensive solution, CPMs are easily collapsing and they cannot establish confidence. I would like to ask you again, and then pass the same question to Fikri Toros. A lot of our friends in the chat room of our meeting here are questioning how we move forward. And I would ask you, especially as a Greek Cypriot, maybe you've got a better feeling of what our society believes. Do we, the Greek Cypriots, see the danger of losing our counterparts in the north? We see what is happening in recent period there, that those people are afraid of losing their identity. Do we see the danger of creating a permanent border in Cyprus, in Agios Dometios, in Astromeridis, in Derya, a permanent border with Turkey?
Absolutely, that is the fear that I mentioned, I talked about earlier, because we all know that a separate Turkish Cypriot state will never be recognized by the international community. So that's not a viable solution even for the Turkish Cypriots that believe that that might happen. I mean, that minority of Turkish Cypriots that believe that that might happen. But of course, the demographics in the north have changed very much. And that is why Turkey is able to influence even the elections in northern Cyprus. And what will happen if there is insistence on the separation is that the northern part of Cyprus, even unofficially, will become a province of Turkey. There is no other way that it can exist if it is not recognized internationally. And of course, our side will never accept the lifting of the sanctions under those circumstances, you know. So it will not be economically viable and it will not be politically viable because it will not be recognized widely in the international community. So the border will be here.
Fikri Toros?
Well, absolutely. That is the biggest danger we're all confronted by. And that's why I'm calling upon the United Nations and the rest of the international community with vested interest in this, on this island and in the region to do what they can by initiating a new approach and ensuring that the negotiations are resumed soon rather than late. The longer the impasse continues, the likelihood of a hard border between the Republic of Cyprus and Turkey becomes more and more likely. It is the danger that we are going through at the moment. I sincerely believe that the Greek Cypriot leadership must take certain concrete steps at the moment in order to prevent any likelihood of that happening. I sincerely believe that closer dialogue must be deployed again, just like in the past. And what I want to say regarding the hydrocarbon explorations is, yes, I agree with Phidias that the Greek Cypriot leadership made the mistake of overvaluing the hydrocarbons in the Cypriot EEZ. But in addition to that, we must bear in mind that the European Union has a political strategy now called the EU Green Deal, which aims to abolish the use of fossil energy sources, you see, by the year of 2035. Therefore, the hydrocarbon issue is not the reason of the ongoing impasse. It is the dispute on the maritime zones which have been triggered by the hydrocarbon explorations. It's very important to distinguish between these two aspects, in my opinion. Therefore, it's not the hydrocarbons that we must tackle at the moment. It is the issue of the delimitation of maritime zones. Now, according to international law and the UN Convention of the Law of the Seas, this is done through negotiations amongst the neighboring countries. But due to the ongoing political dispute between Turkey, Cyprus, and Greece, this cannot happen. And therefore, an interim arrangement must be devised in order to ensure that equitable rights of Turkey, Cyprus, and Greece are respected.
These kind of questions might arise in a more in a broader picture of reversing the current collision course. This is what we are examining as OPEK, the Association for Social Reform, Mr. Pilides, Mr. Toros, and I would like to draw a small context of what we are thinking here, and we can share it with you as well. We do firmly believe that we can restore what has been achieved until Grants Montana from the moment we will position the Greek Cypriot community clearly on the issue of the political equality, and secondly, come out with a more specific opening towards Turkey in its discussions to form a new positive agenda with the European Union. Do you consider, Mr. Pilides, that if we check again what is required and what we can shoulder as responsibilities for both Greek Cypriots as ordinary citizens and Turkish Cypriots, do you think that what you have raised from the beginning, that we will never lose hope, can come out with specific political initiatives? And I also include in this discussion a serious opening to the Turkish Cypriot community, which is now isolated because of the politics and the confrontation atmosphere created in the last 4 years.
I think we have to tackle two main issues here, Kyriakos, that have been the thorns in the relations from the beginning. Talking about the Greek Cypriot side, their main fear is security. There was an invasion, there was bloodshed, there was displacement of people, etc. And even though a lot of the younger people, and younger now people that are quite old, haven't seen that, it's in the minds of people. So the possibility of a large number of Turkish troops remaining on the island and the continuation forever of the guarantees, the guarantor powers guarantees, is a main fear for Greek Cypriots. But Turkish Cypriots, and Fikri can correct me if I'm wrong, I think their main fear is that they will be, if because of the numbers majority, if there are no adequate safeguards in terms of political equality, they will be swallowed by the Greek Cypriot community in terms of the Greek Cypriot community will be dictating what will be happening, and they will have no defense even in the cases where their interests are being threatened. So I think these are the two main issues that need to be solved in order to take us forward. And I think in Grand Montana, listening to our side, I think there was the fear that Turkey was not going far enough with relinquishing guarantees and withdrawing troops to an adequate number early enough. And the Turkish Cypriots were not satisfied with our interpretation of political inequality. And we must tackle those issues. We must not come back with the same agenda on those issues. And this is what I'm appealing to both sides.
Mm-hmm. Fikri?
Well, as you will recall, straight after Crown Montana, the Secretary General appointed a temporary special representative, Ms. Jane Hall-Lute. And as soon as she began her mission, which was called Terms of Reference, as you will recall, Mr. Anastasiadis started deviating from the parameters and all the convergences and the Guterres framework as well. He immediately told Ms. Lute that he would not be prepared to accept rotational presidency, and he would not be prepared to accept effective participation with one favorable vote of the Turkish Cypriots in all federal organs. At the same time, he repeated that he was prepared to remain committed to all relevant resolutions and parameters. The two created a serious contradiction, as you will recall. Therefore, Phidias is absolutely right in saying that the Turkish Cypriots do not feel sufficiently secure that any likelihood of the 1963 incidences cannot take place again. Likewise, I do empathize and appreciate the Greek Cypriots' fear that unilateral intervention, as in 1974, may recur unless there are sufficient security valves in place. So, I mean, in summary, when...
how can we put things together again? This is a critical issue.
This is exactly what I was trying to point out in my intervention at the beginning of this webinar tonight. A new and different approach has to be devised by the United Nations. A new modality needs to be prepared and deployed. And the new modality must ensure full commitment and full adherence to all relevant UN resolutions. Political equality, Kyriakos, is not only a sine qua non element of a federation. In other words, there's no federation without political equality, all right? Mm-hmm. But it is also a UN parameter, as described in Security Council Resolution 716, okay? So I personally believe that political equality should not be amongst the negotiation chapters. And as the Security Council, in their new approach, can very comfortably underline this reality. It is also a convergence. Both elements of political equality, namely rotational presidency as well as effective participation, are all in the convergences right up to Crown Montana, not to mention in the Guterres 6-point framework released on the 30th of June 17. Okay, these are not subject to renegotiation, and the Greek Cypriot leadership must convince all parties concerned that when they say they're committed to UN resolutions, they mean it. This is the way we can overcome the impasse.
But do you think the Guterres framework is still alive after 4 years, with so many changes on the ground and around the problem?
Well, I mean, with the change of the Turkish position and the Turkish Cypriot position with Tatar's election, no, I don't. The Turkish position at the moment is that they're not prepared to continue negotiations from where we left off in Crown Montana, but for negotiations to resume, sovereign equality must be recognized, or the international status of the Turkish Cypriots must be equalized. That's what they're claiming. This is why we are in a deadlock. But it is the role of the United Nations and the permanent members of the Security Council to bring these two positions together on a common ground.
When you say, Mr. Toros, about new modality or a new approach, a new way to deal with the problem, how do you define this?
Well, this new approach must not be open-ended, Soula. In all the attempts in the last 20 years, at the moment where we thought we were very close to a political agreement, as you will recall, one side, took a step back. Okay, this must not be allowed in the new approach. That's what we mean by result-oriented modality. That's what we mean by avoidance of an open-ended process. That's what we mean when we say that the process should be within a given timetable. In other peace-building processes across the world, you may recall that a modality called Camp David modality was deployed before political agreements were reached. Camp David modality means exactly what we're saying. So rather than keeping it open-ended, rather than saying, we refuse a timetable, no, we keep it confined to a calendar. We make sure it is an irrevocable process. We make sure that nobody can leave the table until a political agreement is reached. And in order to facilitate this, maybe arbitration of the Security Council or members of the Security Council could be useful as well. European Union cannot be an arbitrator because Greece and Cyprus are full-fledged members. Turkish Cypriots are outside the acquis communautaire, and Turkey is only a candidate state, okay, with a very thorny relationship with the European Union at the moment as we speak. So I believe the involvement of the international community, but in particular the United Nations, is going to play a paramount role in overcoming the deadlock.
Arbitration was used in the Annan plan, and many Cypriots said they don't accept this way of going about. But actually, the Secretary General was always saying that the process will be result-oriented, we will finish quickly, we'll finish, there will be a limit to it. But, okay, when you come to a deadlock, it's a deadlock. I mean, you can't continue.
Listen,
anyway,
if we prioritize,
I agree with you.
If we prioritize the interests of the Cypriots, the interest of Cyprus, if we focus on what's in the interest of the future of Cyprus, one must learn to compromise. One cannot compromise by saying we can't accept this and we can't accept the other, etc. This is not constructive. And Cypriots, and I mean both Cypriot communities, must learn a lesson from past experiences, and they must pull themselves together, refrain from taking an emotional path, but concentrate on rationality for the greater good of the island.
This is how the European Union is reaching decisions. They square the circle by agreeing, having a common denominator, and finding answers to the problems. Anyway,
I think we have to conclude our discussion.
Yes,
definitely, we have a lot. We learn a lot from what we heard from our keynote speakers. Phidias, Pilides, Fikri, Toros, I would like to thank you for your participation. We do firmly believe that we need to continue, Mehmet, Derya, with the communal movement platform to organize bi-communal discussions. Of course, we know that summertime may not be so favorable for this kind of activities, but definitely pending the developments we have on the ground and having in mind the challenges ahead, we will be here asking from people from both communities who have a real say, an honest position, and they are reliable enough to present views about the future of Cyprus with a common vision, even if we differ in some aspects. Yes, we need to continue. And I would like very, very much to thank Phidias, Pilides and Fikri, Toros for their participation. Mehmet, we are in agreement?
Yes, yes. I would like to thank you very much for Mr. Pilides and Mr. Toros as well, and also Soula, Hadjikyriakou for this program. And I believe one day we will be reunited again. And I would like to give one message as the last word. As we already called the opposition parties in the Turkish Cypriot parliament, when Mr. Erdogan comes to Cyprus on 20th of July, he was going to make a speech in the parliament of Turkish Cypriot parliament, political parliament. We want the opposition parties not to join to his speech, because what they are saying that they believe it's not right what the Erdogan did on the elections and up to everything in our political area is not right for them to join to this speech. Thank you very much.
So the MPs will go out of the parliament house?
They should go out because they don't believe in it's what he did to us is not right.
Okay, that's a good way of expressing your protest.
The developments, we are surely pay huge attention in the days to come of what will be the consequences of the situation. And definitely we need to search a new approach, and we need the strength of the civil society to go ahead. Thank you very much, everyone, for your participation.
Thank you.
Thank you for the invitation.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Soula, Kyriakos, and Mehmet.
Thanks to everybody. Good night.
Good night.